This is our monthly Get a Job segment. Town Director, Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation, Gail Cruikshank joins us in studio now. Gail, good to see you.
Good morning.
All right, so today we're talking about an aging workforce, the baby boomers. A lot of them are retired, maybe not all of them, but yeah, we don't have as big a population with Gen Xers. So what are we going to do when we don't have as many people in the workforce?
Yeah, it's actually kind of staggering. A couple fun facts that I found when I was putting this together is by 2030, 1 in 5 Minnesotans will be older adults, and the retirement working age ratio will be at its peak. And then also in 2030, the population that is working will hit an all-time low. So it is startling, and it is something that our employers need to be aware of. And again, we at GSDC are always looking to, attract new people to the region, but a lot of other cities are doing that as well. So, we need to shine as that best place to live, which hopefully will attract more. But the other thing for our employers to really consider is they either have to embrace our immigrant population and find ways to, filtrate them into their workforce, or look for new technologies to, increase efficiencies just to impact that labor shortage. But one thing that I think a lot of our employers forget about is somebody comes in and says, I think I'm going to retire. Well, have they had that conversation with them? It's like maybe they can work part-time for a while. Maybe they can slowly phase out. Maybe it's let's change your job responsibilities, because a lot of times those people aren't ready to just be totally done, but maybe their world or their job, their physical job requirements have become too demanding.
Right. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, and some people do retire and then realize that I wasn't really ready for this.
I have heard that more and more in the last couple of years. It's like, I figured I was ready. Well, they do that for a couple months, and yeah, it's great. But then what am I going to do? I'm an active 65-year-old or 60-year-old or 70-year-old, and I still want to be engaged.
Right.
And so that's where if employers can really hone in on, offering those experienced employees, well, really all employees, but today we're talking about those experienced folks, that flexibility, whatever, everybody wants flexibility these days, but it looks different for everybody. It might just be a flexible schedule as far as when they start or when they leave. It might be, just looking at different job responsibilities. So a lot of and plus, they cannot let all that experience walk out the door without transferring it to someone, again, for their own growth of their company.
Yeah, it sounds like this could be a benefit if they can come up with ways where you can have that person who's retiring, move them to part-time, maybe allow them to work from home if the job would permit. Maybe that's an option for them as well, to try to ease some of the, kind of ease them into retirement. And that could be a benefit to the employee, too.
It absolutely can, because it's a big change. And so I think a lot of times people don't really realize what it'll be like to be fully retired. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, this isn't what I hoped it would be. And a lot of them like to still be engaged. And again, if you're an employer of choice, the culture is something that they strive for. And so those people want to be a part of that. So maybe they just can't do the job the way they were originally, assigned to. And that's where that ongoing communication with your employees is critical. Today we're talking about that experienced workforce, but any employees, you should know exactly, what their passions are, what their capabilities are, what opportunities might you be able to do to enhance their job. And then they don't get so held up on, it's time to retire. I love what I do, so I'm going to keep doing it. And it's only helping you as an employer.
So, Gail, if somebody comes to the boss and says, I'm going to retire, Do you get a feel? Do you ask questions about what do you plan on doing afterward, without trying to force them to stay?
Right.
But if this is a valuable employee, how do you gauge the conversation about, well, we could maybe work with you and you could maybe do less. Maybe it could be kind of a semi-retirement kind of thing.
Well, I think that's, again, it goes back to how well, what kind of relationships do you have with your employees? I mean, if you're regularly, if you know a lot about your employees, you can ask those questions. You can say, well, have you thought about maybe, less hours, or what's that driving force for your retirement? I mean, some people have a definite plan and they are going to retire. But then let's talk about between the time they tell you that and the time they actually depart. How do we absorb all of your knowledge? How do we transfer that to other people? How do we, again, prepare for you not to be here if they are for sure going to depart? But I think a lot of people, if they're given the opportunity to do maybe something a little bit different, just something a little less, they're still incredibly valuable, and our employers are going to have to figure out how to utilize that to, again, round out their workforce.
Gail, so what tips do you have? And I know we touched on some of these already, to manage those older employees.
Well, keeping an open mind. I mean, same way. And again, at the end of the day, if the job is done and the job is done as it's supposed to be, that's okay. And learning, trying to give them learning new skills. Everybody should be cross-training, no matter if you're, new, old, whatever. And so that just enhances your workforce in general. But again, be open to feedback as an employer. These employees have a lot to share, work-related, personally related. So listen to them. And really, like you talked about, understanding their motivations. Maybe there is something that they just, need to change a little bit, and it'll be fine. Sometimes people make quick decisions. Well, when they actually sit down and think about it, maybe that isn't what they wanted to do. So again, it's really understanding all your employees, and particularly our older workforce, just to see if there's ways to extend their employment with you, because they have so much knowledge. You've invested a lot in them. Again, continuing to train your associates always continues to make them more valuable to you as well as to their own skill set.
I think all of us, there's probably a part of our job that we're like, I don't really like that part of it. If you're an employer, if you could maybe switch some of those responsibilities onto somebody else, is that more likely to keep that person on board?
I think so. I mean, for one, it says, okay, my employer listened to me. They value me. So they've made a few edits. Maybe they gave some of those responsibilities to someone else that's looking for more, or a new employee, or whatever it might be. I think also thinking about job shadowing. What a great way to pair a new employee with an experienced one, to kind of follow them around for a while to learn their job responsibilities. Plus, it makes that experienced employee feel pretty good that you trust them to train a new employee. So again, it's making them feel good, but also recognizing their skill set to, again, find opportunities to keep them on longer, or, because again, that word of mouth is going to get out. So it's going to be, well, my employer didn't offer to do that for me, so I'm going to go to work for this company because they have. I mean, our community is big enough, but it's also small enough. So your employees hear what's happening in other companies, and if somebody's got a better, plan, or a culture or process for doing things, people are going to explore that.
So employers need to keep an open mind and look for, this could be a challenge for them, especially if they've always done something a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just it. You have to, again, we've talked about this many times with different topics. Employers have to be continually evolving for them to be successful. And your people is one of those, the top key element that you need to really understand and really embrace, because there's going to be less of us. So let's figure out the most efficient way to utilize all the resources that we each bring.
Anything else about this that we haven't touched on you wanted to bring up, Gail?
I think, the one thing we should always be looking to upskill our employees, no matter who they are, if they're the newest employee or if they're the one that's been there the longest, because that always is continual growth and development. Plus also that builds culture. It really builds a strong, work environment, which is critical. And so, it continues to be a job seeker's market. I am hearing that there's a lot more applicants applying to employers' jobs, which is encouraging. But also that means that you still have to stand out as that employer. Otherwise, there are multiple options for them as well that candidate can look at and consider.
Are we still in a job seeker market?
I would say yes. But it again it's always going to be, I think in my mind, a job seeker market, just because now there's flexibility, there's options, there's employers that have done things differently post-COVID. And even if business slows a little bit, they're going to continue to do what's right for their employees. And that, again, is going to help them be that employer of choice.
How many jobs do you have available online?
It's right around 5,500. And again, that's 3 counties. So those are all jobs that you would not have to relocate for. So to find those and any information about why you would want to live and engage and stay in St. Cloud, it's great at stcloudshines.com. And then within that is the job spot portal. And then also, if you are looking for information as an employer, as for recruitment, retention, all of those sort of things, you can find that at our GSDC site, which is just greaterstcloud.com.
Okay, very good. Gail, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great week.
You too. That's Gail Cruikshank, Talent Director, Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation, joining us here on WJON for our Get a Job segment.